What's up, everybody? It's your boy Tru Element 78 in the building with.
Your one and only reigning, defending Mondo Lucha Hall of Famer, the Ric Flair of this group, the X-Man, Xavier Mustafa.
And I'm the man who always takes his matches seriously, the natural Chris Black.
And you are, of course, listening to the Shawn Michaels of this group. if
Hell, he's not even in this group.
She's not in Evolution.
if Xavier Mustafa wants to be Ric
That's
Flair,
a mystery.
no, if he wants to be Ric Flair, I'm goddamn Shawn Michaels, because I will retire Xavier Mustafa. We got to keep it going. Anyways, today you are tuned into a very special edition of Saturday Night Slamcasters. As you know, we have been doing, or should I say, covering the WWE Network's Ruthless Aggression Era series that they have going on. And today we're here to cover episode 3, which was Evolution, which covers the four-man power trip, the four-man group known as Evolution in WWE, which consisted of Randall Keith Orton, the Animal Batista, the Game Triple H, and of course the jet flying, limousine riding, kiss stealing Ric Flair.
Wait, what about the other member? There was another member. Come on now, let's not forget him.
Oh, you mean the Chris Black of the crew, the Mark Jindrak?
What? Wait a minute.
We're definitely going to get into that. But, yeah, like I said, this covered the creation, the evolution, and pretty much the disbandment, I should say, of Evolution, and how it was created to make stars and to resurrect a star. And so, yeah, we can definitely get into it. I really like this episode. I think they summed things up pretty well. I think out of the three, since this is the third episode, I guess just to say, out of 3 that we've watched so far, I feel that this might have been one of the most honest looks into the Ruthless Aggression Era that they've shown. It still had a little bit of fluff and history changes or whatever, but it wasn't. I didn't feel like a lot of stuff got glossed over. But it was also kind of hard to tell the entire John Cena story that they tried to tell in 45 minutes as well, because he's been there for the entire time. They pretty much started in the John Cena as the prototype in his first world championship, but it was a lot more to the Ruthless Aggression Era and John Cena than that. And this was the longest episode. It was 1 hour and 5 minutes, so they were able to pretty much cover all 4 members of the group. But let's start with Xavier Mustafa. What did you think about the Evolution episode, and what were your takeaways?
I thought it was a good episode. I'm not sure how I feel about Triple H after this episode, though. But overall, I thought it was a good episode. I'm not going to get too much into it because I know we're going to break it down. So I'll hold my opinions to the end.
Chris Black?
I really enjoyed this episode. I can honestly say that I learned probably the most so far. Like I said, I remember all these key points in this program tonight, but there's a lot that I did not know, like the formation of Evolution. We'll get into it, but like I forgot, I didn't even realize that Orton and Batista was out for injury, which kind of is a testament to WWE had so much going on that you didn't notice. Maybe they covered it well, but this was an absolutely great episode. And I don't know what Mustafa's talking about. I don't look at Triple H any differently than he did before.
It was kind of funny watching this because it made me. I'd already realized this a while ago that the reason that the Undisputed Era is so successful is that Triple H basically took the Evolution playbook and just basically gave it to the Undisputed Era.
All right, first of all, it's not the Triple H playbook, it's the Four Horsemen playbook that he stole and I missed the stealing. So let's give credit where credit is due.
The Four Horsemen were a different type of thing, I feel. Like a lot
That's
of people
what it was mimic out of. That's what it was mimic after.
So would you say Undisputed Era is like a Four Horsemen type group?
Yep.
So break them. Well, we're not here to talk about Undisputed Era. I was gonna say break them down into the power, the legend, yada yada yada, because they're all young guys. But I don't know. But like I said, we're not here to talk about Undisputed Era. We're here to talk about Evolution. So they pretty much start with talking a lot about Ric Flair and pretty much his problems as far as coming over to the WWE and transitioning and not knowing who Ric Flair is anymore and having anxiety attacks in the ring and not being able to get it going in the ring and just get it going behind the curtain or anything, just not feeling like himself, being lost in the mid card and lower card pretty much in WWE. And Triple H basically says he sees this and he takes it upon himself to try to resurrect the 16-time world champion by pretty much having him be his mentor or manager, pretty much coming out with him and working with him and soaking in as much knowledge as he can. What you guys think about when you started seeing Ric Flair with Triple H back in the day?
Okay. Well, when this documentary, this episode first started out, I thought they were going to start stroking Triple H's ego at first, because they come out with the different incarnation of Triple H, which I enjoyed, and then they got into the whole Ric Flair thing, and I'm just like, I forgot who was like the host or whatever, but they were saying, is this the greatest faction ever? No, they were good. I don't know about greatest faction ever. It's one of my favorite factions, but I wouldn't say the greatest faction ever.
Oh no.
Possibly Ruthless Aggressions.
They said the greatest faction of the Ruthless Aggression Era. They didn't say of all time.
Well, they started out. They said the greatest faction ever, and then they dialed it back and said it's Ruthless Aggression, greatest faction. I'm like, okay, I can probably agree with that. But yeah, Ric Flair. I thought it was great. I mean, I thought that Triple H and Ric Flair always had a kind of a camaraderie back then, so it wasn't a surprise when I saw Ric Flair coming out with Triple H. I had no idea the point of them doing that was to kind of rejuvenate Flair, because as again, the host or whoever the host was talking, well, actually no, it was Triple H, was like he was basically a shell of himself. He wasn't the same Ric Flair. He could play the Ric Flair character, but he was not Ric Flair of old.
Right. Xavier, Mustafa?
All right, so I don't know, just because I'm just that type of guy, but I just see it as Triple H taking advantage of a situation, to be honest. It's like, oh, this is going on. Let me use this as an excuse to put one of the greatest of all times next to me to help me get over. Not saying that he wasn't over, but I think he definitely took advantage of that opportunity. To me, the whole evolution thing and this whole episode thing was who you know. Because if it was anybody else but Triple H and Ric Flair, I think if it was a regular wrestler who was in Ric Flair's shoes, they'd have just been out of there. They wouldn't have made an effort to try to, put people with different guys to try to make it work out.
Well,
he handpicked the two people in Revolution. I was kind of arrogant about it. It was kind of like, I'm picking you two. Guess what? The whole locker room is going to hate you guys, but fuck them, because I picked you two. You guys are going to be, and it's just like, oh, and if they got a problem with it, I'm going to rub it in their face. Like,
well,
that came off as very shitty and arrogant to me.
Well, we're gonna definitely get into that part, but
whatever.
The first part, as you said, of course, yeah. If it was anybody else that wasn't a 16-time world champion, who basically, like, it could be argued maybe Flair was past his prime at that time, but he could still go in the ring for the most part of the time. But yeah, if it was freaking Carlito sitting at the side and being all down or whatever, I don't think Triple H is gonna go and approach him and be like, yo, you got to turn it back on and get back to where you were. Where the fuck was Carlito? Like, but it's Ric Flair. It's like, yo, like, you're better than this. I know you're better than this. Now let's get you back to where you belong on the card and get you back to some type of prominence.
One thing this episode did tell me about Triple H is Triple H isn't the most honest person in the world. And what made me really realize that is when they talked about the Mark Ginger, what was his name? Mark Ginger?
Yeah.
When they talked about the whole Jindrak thing, he had a problem with him turn around and say, "Hey, guy, I got a fucking problem with you acting like a dickhead in the back of the seat." They didn't say nothing. Had this dude come put on a motherfucking suit and do a promo or do shots and shit. Then we're gonna be like, "Oh, bro, why don't you go get something to catering? We gonna do a little more, but we don't need you for these." You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's the shitty part of wrestling. Like, if you got a problem with somebody, say it. Say the shit.
Come on,
Don't say nothing, and then gotta have that awkward conversation at the end, like, "Oh, by the way, yeah, we know you have you on TV for the past 18 weeks. It's because we don't like you in the group. Thank you. No, thank you."
Look, I know some people that you don't like, that you still can smile in their face or whatever.
You can still smile and be nice to them, but you don't do them like that and put them in a position like that. Like, for instance, let's say,
but it also wasn't at that time. It also wasn't Triple H's spot either necessarily. It was Vince McMahon's spot, and he let it be known to Vince McMahon he didn't want him, but Vince McMahon was going to force the issue anyway.
All right, but Triple H's whole thing was it didn't quote unquote fit because they was being silly and shit in the back. Well, Randy Orton was being just as silly with him. So why didn't he get the boot? Oh, because when Mark Jindrak wasn't there, he was acting right. But instead of just telling Mark Jindrak, "Hey, bro, you fucking up," ain't that what you're supposed to be as a mentor to one of the young kids? Tell them when they fuck up. They never keep fucking up. All right, then you got to shit on them.
Well, I mean, you got to think about it. He had handpicked Batista for that role. If he wanted Jindrak, he would have named Jindrak to be originally in the group. He wanted Batista, and he didn't want to give up on Batista yet.
Yeah,
so he wanted to be patient. See, okay, so I'm going on record as saying I think Triple H got probably one of the greatest minds in the business. Guarantee if you look into his library, he has the 48 Laws of Power somewhere on the shelves. Because the way that this man has ascended to the top, you could write probably an entire novel on how Triple H has kind of literally played the game and positioned himself into a position of power. Triple H back then, he wanted his own stable. Vince McMahon was against factions, believe it or not, like the documentary said. I couldn't believe that. And he said that he actually had to ask him several times about this faction. The whole Ric Flair was, Ric Flair was a tie-in between the two groups, Evolution. He was that tie-in between Evolution and the Four Horsemen. So Triple H, he always surrounds himself with people that's going to keep him relevant, and it's always going to be all about him.
Yeah, he's Drake. He's the Drake of professional wrestling. He stands next to the guy that is the guy, so he can still be the guy.
Right, but I also will say that if you were to name my top three wrestlers, Triple H is my third, right behind Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart.
You know what? He's good. I'm not going to say he's a terrible wrestler and that I don't enjoy his matches and that he's a piece of shit. I just gonna say that I just feel that certain things that he does is kind of shitty.
Yeah. And also, you talked about him being a mentor. He didn't have to be a mentor to Mark Jindrak because he never wanted to be a mentor to Mark Jindrak.
Yeah. No, like I said, Triple H, he played the game. Batista was out. They probably pushed Jindrak in the group. He's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll give him a chance. But he's thinking to himself, first chance I get, I'm burying this guy.
Well, see, if you're supposed to be a company man and they give you a directive, follow the damn directive.
He did. But then he had his own strategies waiting in the wind.
Right. So then they basically, we kind of jumped ahead. We went from Triple H and Ric Flair doing their thing or whatever. But it eventually comes around to that basically Triple H wants to build a stable, and so he pretty much handpicks these two young guys. He's like, let's find two young up and comers. So he's like, I pick Randy Orton. He's like, he has a good look. He's of pedigree and all this different type of stuff. And then he's like, all right, now we need our enforcer. We need power. So he handpicks Batista and brings Batista in. And this is where he made the comment about down at OVW that they trained Batista how to wrestle like a 70s big man and that they were going to have to completely rebuild him from scratch.
Let's talk about these two characters. What you guys thought of them before they joined Evolution? I'll start out first. So Randy Orton, I remember, oh God, his hair when he first came out, I was laughing my ass off when I saw all that hair that he used to have. I remember the whole babyface blue chipper thing, and he kind of came across as kind of like The Rock when The Rock first came out as a babyface. Orton is not a natural babyface, and they'll get into that later on. But I remember him getting the shoulder injury. I remember him doing the RNN report where it was obvious he was turning heel, but you enjoyed it, and that kept him relevant. Then, it was the inevitable him joining the group. Now, but Batista, totally different. I thought dude was just the absolute shits. I thought he was garbage. I hated the Deacon Batista gimmick, even though Batista hated it too,
Well, that's
because
what I
it
was
was
gonna
more
get
of a
to
manager.
next.
Oh yeah,
I said I wanted to get
it's
to
more
that.
of a manager role, and he was green as hell, and it was obvious. And man, I saw those spine busters he was giving. They looked so damn sloppy. But Triple H saw something in him and wanted to have him join the group. But that was my take on those two before they got into Evolution. What about you guys?
So my thoughts on Randy Orton is I loved Randy Orton. I thought he was great. I thought he was real polished in most of his matches. And I definitely see why they saw the star in him. As far as Batista goes, I have never been a fan of Batista. I don't like I hate him or anything. It's just like if one of his matches comes on and there's some pizza rolls in the oven, I'm paying attention to the pizza rolls.
Another big
To be
guy
honest.
that Xavier Mustafa doesn't like. What a
Mm-hmm.
surprise!
Well, hold on.
Not,
Before you get on that big guy stuff, they build him at 6'5", 300 some pounds. Okay, 300 some
325
pounds,
pounds.
yes, sure. But when I met him, look here, I'm 6'1", legit, and I was taller than he was.
He
Just saying.
he also not 325, but you know how the numbers go in professional wrestling.
but one thing I'll say about Batista though, he was killing people with them damn power bombs. When he power bombed Triple H to that table, when they did the contract signing for him to challenge him for the Raw title, he power bombed the mess out of dude through
Shit,
that
it's
table.
because he had one job.
And that's also what we said off the air. Watching all of the footage of their matches back then, and just how everything got laid in and looked good. Like, yeah, today it looks like some kids play fighting in the ring. If you compare to what we get nowadays.
Now, one thing I will say about Batista though, probably has one of my favorite interest themes. Cause I don't care who you are, you get hyped when his music play. You do the whole thing with the gun. You do all that when his music come on.
Yeah.
And there's actually a video. I don't know if you guys saw it of when he was at WrestleMania, I believe it was the last one, and Xavier Woods
Oh, it was
like sung
backstage.
his
Yeah.
interest, yeah, backstage or whatever. It was just totally like just losing his shit for his interest in music. It's a great video. Y'all should look it up if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I was a fan of Randy Orton at this time. Well, actually, I really became a fan of Randy Orton during his Legend Killer time. I wasn't really a big fan of him when he first came in as like the Blue Chipper and the RNN report. I thought that he was just a dick, which I guess so he was effective. Like it was kind of funny looking at Randy Orton back then and looking at MJF these days, and just you can kind of just look like they're like pretty much like the same character, kind of like swarmy face, punchable face. I'm better than you, and you know it type stuff.
What I really liked about Randy Orton, which you kind of mentioned, is yeah, he's a dick. When you look at him, all you see is dick. When you meet him, all you see is dick. Like it is all you can suck dick fest when that guy's around. If that didn't come out right, but anyway,
But it was also
well,
funny seeing him just like you hear the stories about pretty much him like well this was before Dolph Ziggler, but just how many chicks he was taking down backstage and everything. Like there was every Stacy Keibler when he walked into Vince McMahon's office and she's checking him out and he's making out with the chicks in catering, and then it was like the scene where he was outside talking to some young girl and looked like her mom, so some ring rat had her young daughter out there in training and everything. It was just I was like, wow. I was like, Randy Orton and Mark Jindrak was taking him down, especially when Randy Orton became champion, which we're gonna get to in a second.
Well, one thing about Randy Orton is like when they tried to do the babyface run with him, and like what was his name? Jim Cornette said, you can tell this guy's a dick. Like, it's not gonna work. And I think what actually happened with him is he realized one day how you can be a babyface and still be a dick because him being a babyface nowadays, he is being an asshole. But he makes it entertaining and he gets over by doing it, which I think is great. Like he finally figured out how to, you know,
Well,
be a dick, but be a babyface dick, if that makes any sense.
yeah, it's like
Hold on.
it's the
Before we
Wolverine
get into
Deadpool type thing. The
I said,
anti
before we
hero.
get
Right.
into his title reign,
Yeah, that's what
um,
that's what I was gonna move
like I said
into.
before we do, so there was a couple of hurdles that Evolution had to overcome, and one of them was there was a match between Orton and Batista versus
Well, hold on
um,
before we. Well, actually, actually, that's right. Yeah, that is one to get into
yeah,
because that was the
yeah.
injury that sidelined everything. But before that, I want to get into like the actual debut, because it was weird, and I don't know if they kind of played with the timeline because I don't necessarily recall them announcing those four and then them being out and then coming back. Like I had to go back and check out the
At
art.
what point you mean when they first debuted? Like this is who we are. Like all four of them came out. Triple H cut that promo.
Yeah, when Triple H cut that promo and they all came down to the ring and they're raising their arms and talking about this is the evolution, which was also interesting that they actually gave Arn Anderson the credit for coming up with the name of
Yeah,
him. But it was also kind of funny because he kind of threw Ric Flair under the bus. He was like, "This is like looking at one of those Neanderthal posters. Like you got Ric Flair on the one end,
all hunched over and shit.
and then we get to Randy Orton." So I,
Skip Batista.
so I found that kind of hilarious. But yeah, I don't necessarily. It, I think you brought it up. Like, well, no, Randy Orton had the injury against Christian, and that was his shoulder, and that was the RNN report. So yeah, well, we can get into the other injury, but yeah, Triple H came out. He introduced Randy Orton and Batista into the fold with him and Ric Flair, and basically let the world know that they were Evolution. And then before we get into the match with the Dudley Boys, let's get into the match that Triple H said he had to pull Randy Orton and Batista to the side after this match. And it was pretty much after he had announced that they were going to be in his faction that he's going to have to retrain these guys because they went out there and forgot all of their training. They had a match with Scott Steiner and Booker T. And so I had Xavier Mustafa and Chris Black go back to watch this match to see what they saw in the match on why Triple H may have been upset with these guys, because if you're watching this documentary, you may not have really understood. And so I'll let Chris Black take over and explain why he think Triple H went off on these guys when they went backstage.
All right, so we went back and actually watched this match between Booker T, Scott Steiner, and Randy Orton and Batista. So I'm looking for what they did wrong during the match. And then right away, within the first 2 minutes, I realized what was happening. Basically, Booker T was lighting their asses up. And he basically, for the first, it was like an 8 minute match. In the first 6.5 minutes, it was all Booker T going basically one on one against Batista and Randy Orton and dominating both of them. I mean, they both look like buffoons going up against Booker T. So I can see where Triple H was like, no. This is not the vision that I had for this faction. We're supposed to be dominant. And they did not look dominant. Like I said, they looked like some buffoons. I don't want to, when I say they were falling all over themselves, I don't mean like they were clumsy, but basically like Batista would come in for a save on Randy Orton and he'd get tossed around by Booker T like a child. And they just did not look like a threat whatsoever. They actually kind of looked like a joke. And Triple H knows how Vince McMahon thinks. If you're out there bumping like a clown, looking like a clown, you're going to be booked like a clown. And once you've been pigeonholed into like the clown character, it's very hard to get out of. So Triple H was really disappointed because, again, this was not his vision. Booker T ate him up. Like, he gave them nothing. Mustafa, what did you see?
Well, you got to keep in mind, how long has it been since the Booker T Buff Bagwell match? He's probably like, I'm getting all my shit in, y'all. But But yeah, I just thought it was too frantic, and that just made it look very amateurish. I do think, however, if I look at it closely, I do think Flair missed a spot because there was a part where um, Randy Orton was down. You like you said, what's his name came in to make a save. He got the kick, and then Ric Flair got up on the apron. Well, they did the same spot later on. So I think what happened was, I think that got miscommunicated. So it might have been Flair's fault. I don't know. Maybe he got confused, but it was very frantic. And then I think it got to the point where Scott Steiner was like, "All right, y'all made me look like a fucking idiot." He came in, it wasn't even our tag.
Yeah. Well,
Now,
that's it. I'm saying that's the other thing. You had two WCW. You remember how how old attitudes were towards the WCW guys. You had two WCW stars going against two homegrown WWE guys, and they made them look like a couple of amateurs.
now there's another thing I want to know. There was 4 people in this match, right? There's people in Gorilla. There's people backstage. Nobody said, "Hey, Scott, I think you should probably not wear the gear with the American flag on it in Canada." I'm just saying.
It's Scott Steiner.
That's funny. And now we'll get to the Dudley Boys thing, but I do want to address, and also after this match, or a little bit before this match, pretty much when he made the announcement that they were all going to form together, Triple H had also pulled Randy Orton and Batista to the side, and he addressed this in the documentary and basically told them, "Look, you guys were handpicked by me. You're going to be with me. You're going to be with Ric Flair. You're going to ride with us." And it's going to be a lot of people that's going to be like, "Oh, man, that's a great opportunity for you." They're going to smile in your face. But behind your back, they're going to hate on you. They're going to be envious. They're going to do everything to try to take your spot. He warned them about this. And we're going to get into the Dudley Boys match. But what do you guys think? I know Xavier Mustafa kind of expressed already his thoughts on these two young guys pretty much hurdling over all these other people, being handpicked by Ric Flair and Triple H to joining with them, and everybody in the back pretty much knowing what that means. How would that have made you feel if you were in the locker room?
I mean, here I understand that there's times where you know promoters or bookers they're going to have their young guys that they have a vision for. All right, but I don't think at any time you should. I don't think sometimes you need to piss off your whole locker room to do it. If Triple H felt that those were the guys, okay, I get it.
And I want to throw this in there real quick, that both of these guys had only been wrestling for a year. I think Randy Orton said he had been down at OVW for like a year and a half, and then he came up to the main roster, so it only been like 2.5 years for them. So, all right, go ahead.
Uh, it's a shitty situation for your existing locker room. However, you got to be able to go out there and make them see you, make them see that talent in you. Because not that I've probably brought this up before, but Chris Black can co-sign on this. There was a certain promotion that we was working for that we were not the handpicked guys. We always got the shittiest of the shitty at this particular promotion, but we always went out there and we took that chicken shit and made chicken salad. And we end up becoming more over than the quote unquote over things that the main people were doing. And people took notice. Now that promoter didn't take notice just because they didn't want to, but we still knew we had to go out there. We needed to shine, and we did. You're not always going to be given the go ahead, or you're not always going to get the opportunity all the time. So you got to take advantage of it when you can.
I kind of feel like this was back when WWE were still trying to establish people. There was nothing wrong with Orton and Batista because Triple H saw them as the future. I mean, they had been through developmental. Why invest all your time and money into these guys unless you were going to actually try to turn them into stars? And I think that's what he was doing. So I can understand how some of the veterans could be a little salty about that, but I mean, this is pro wrestling. There's always going to be a shinier toy. So I have no problem with it. Now, I mean, to put things into like a perspective of me and you, Mustafa, it's just like Steve Stone basically gave us the same talk that Triple H told Batista and Randy Orton. They're just like, look, you guys, we were only, what, 5 years in the business at the time, so we were relatively newcomers. And he said, dude, I'm giving you my entire locker room. You guys need to run rush out over these peoples, exert your dominance, whatever. And if we wouldn't have done it, we wouldn't have gotten the push that we did.
If you hadn't
So
done
same
it, you would have found
situation.
somebody
So
who
we've
would.
been those young guys taking a top spot from the veterans, and at the same time, conversely, now we're the veterans, and we're always looking to try to get the younger guys to shine.
You know, we weren't assholes about it either. You know what I'm saying? We still thanked everybody that was in the ring with us. We didn't necessarily bury anybody unless we had to bury somebody. And even then, it's like, thank you. You didn't have to do that for me, but you did, and I appreciate it. Like, I at least in my opinion, I thought we were very respectful. They wasn't like, hey, you going to shit on this entire locker room. Fuck those guys, because you're the Golden Boys.
He
like
also didn't tell us we were going to get a lot of heat from it.
Right. And so I'm going to end up asking you guys pretty much a question after this segment. But so they had the match with Booker T and Scott Steiner. Didn't go so well in the eyes of Triple H and a lot of people in the locker room. So they pretty much reset. They come out on another night, and this one wasn't televised. And I've looked everywhere for footage of it. I couldn't find it anywhere. But not Booker T. Batista and Randy Orton wind up having a match against the Dudley Boys in a tag team match. And even in the documentary, they pretty much say the story is different depending on who you ask. But a lot of people came out of this match bruised, battered, and injured, and possible career-ending injuries. So one of the first injuries was Batista was injured. He tore his bicep tricep. And Batista's basic story was basically that Bubba Ray Dudley had charged up him at full speed and ran into him with all of his mass, and his tricep separated in his arm. Bubba Ray's story is that he mushed Batista in the face, and Batista went to mush him back, and his tricep tore. And then Randy Orton was injured when Bubba Ray and Devon went to go do a tag team flapjack, and somehow Randy Orton's leg ended up underneath Bubba Ray's back and shattered his ankle. And then Bubba Ray says he also injured himself with the worst injury in his career of his back when he landed on Randy Orton's ankle. And then they also say that he's in the ring blowing up and yelling at Randy Orton for injuring him, while Randy Orton is in the ring and can't walk. And so then what happens is I'm assuming they finished the match. They didn't address if the match actually had a finish to it. And Batista gets backstage and he's like, I'm hurt, I'm injured or whatever. I tore my tricep. And Triple H is like, oh, thank God. Like, I heard it was something about Randy Orton's ankle or whatever, but I guess it's you who's injured. And then Randy Orton or Batista basically tells Triple H, like, no, we're both actually injured. And it pretty much put the brakes on Evolution from that point. Now, based on what we already discussed about what Triple H told these guys, and my opinion, I'm just going to give it right now, Bubba Ray is a terrible liar. Looking in his eyes and just his mannerisms. Do you think this was a hit on Batista and Randy Orton?
I don't think it was necessarily a hit. I don't think they went in there purposely to hurt these guys, but I know for sure they went in there to be stiff with them and be a little reckless. Because I'm thinking about the flapjack, like he's like, oh, it's a simple move. I grab one leg and he grabs the other leg. How does the leg get wrapped around you? That doesn't make any sense at all. Because if I'm on
you just
the
fall backwards.
left and Devon's on the right, I'm grabbing his right leg with my right arm. So there's no way, even physically, there's no way his leg should be able to get around my body. Unless we had him spread eagle or some shit like that and I grabbed him with the other leg. That's awkward. I just don't get it.
Yeah, Batista was a freak accident, but Randy Orton, that one just didn't make sense to me. And I'm not even a wrestler, but I assume that the flapjack that you throw them off the ropes. One person grabs one leg or thigh, and you guys lift them up in the air. And you just fall flat backwards, and they fall flat on their face.
Yeah, because like you said, I couldn't find any footage of this either, but I'm trying to figure out, just like Mustafa, how do you get your leg? I don't even see how that could even be possible. I'd have to see it to believe it. But just by him, the description, I have to blame Bubba Ray because he must not have grabbed his leg properly. And it sucks when people, fall on your leg or your foot or your ankle. That sucks.
So now, based on the story that you guys told about Steve Stone pulling you to the side and giving you that advice and everything, do you feel that there were people who took exception to you guys in the locker room that were maybe a little bit more stiff in the ring with you guys because of your position on that roster?
Well, American History X, basically, Steve Stone, Brandon Blaze, and Hardcore Craig, the three of them were pretty stiff on us, but I mean, they had to be. We were the dominant heels. They had to beat the hell out of us whenever they got a chance. We got the upper hand up until like the blow-off match, but oh yeah, they weren't light with us at all. They made us earn every single victory that we had.
Yeah, we was in the ring. It was going down. I mean, that's what it was about. You know what I'm saying? And it was cool. As far as the rest of the locker room, though, nobody really took liberties or anything with us. I know there was an issue with TC and a guy because a guy was cutting like an excruciatingly long promo. And so we were told to go in there and end that promo. Get him a little assistance in that promo. And I think TC grabbed the guy's mask or something, and then he started to shoot with TC for a minute.
Well, he was supposed to demask anyway, but TC like kind of rushed it because they told us to go out there because the promo was extremely long. Are you naming names? Because did you forget who that was?
I think that was Mr. Ali, wasn't it?
Yes, it was Mustafa Ali. Yeah, he used to be a masked wrestler, and this promo was going extremely long. He was supposed to take the mask off during the promo. They sent us out there because they needed to end it. We beat them down. TC snatches off the mask. Ali kind of got pissed off about that because he kind of stole his thunder. And they had words in the locker room.
Was this in Milwaukee or in Chicago?
Joliet, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joliet in Coal City, Illinois.
All right. You heard Mustafa Ali is actually donating money to the independent wrestling organizations in Illinois during this.
That's
shutdown.
cool. He's a cool guy.
Yeah. No, we love you, man. No hard feelings.
Hold up. So you telling me a cop started shooting on you guys?
Was he?
He wasn't a cop then. He wasn't a cop then. Nah. I don't know what he was doing then.
That's just funny. A cop started shooting on some black man.
Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter.
But anyways, yeah, moving on. So yeah, that pretty much put the brakes on Evolution as it had been established already by Triple H and Ric Flair. So then it became another two-man power trip of Triple H and Ric Flair doing their own thing until Randy Orton was able to come back a few months later. I believe they said he was out for about 3 or 4 months, and he came back from his ankle injury, which is an amazing comeback. But I've never broken my ankle. Have you guys ever broken your ankle?
Nope. No, but I heard once you break your ankle, it's never the same.
Oh yeah, you could tell he started wearing stiffer boots. Like I was looking at his ankles in this documentary when he was a young guy, and I'm like, Randy Orton had no ankles.
Pause.
But anyways, yeah, so he came back, and then Batista said that seeing him back on television made him go harder to train to get back in the ring, and so he started lifting weights before he was supposed to, and he ended up tearing his tricep off of the bone again, which kept him out for another few months. So I believe he was out altogether. I think it was like 9 months, 9 or 11 months or something like that.
I thought they said maybe 7.
Oh, I thought I heard 9. I thought
I
it was
could be
supposed
wrong.
to be
I
7.
thought I heard him say 7.
Okay, I think
it was 7.
Okay. Well, I guess he was out. We'll say 7 and 9. We'll just split the difference. So yeah.
This was the time when they were talking about replacing him.
Right. And so they brought in this guy named Mark Jindrak, which you guys already heard us start talking about earlier in the podcast. But this is where he was brought in to pretty much be the replacement for Batista because they were unsure of him working out with the crew. They send him Triple H pulls him to the side, and him, Ric Flair, and Randy Orton, they all start riding together, which Randy Orton and Mark Jindrak, before he joined Evolution, had already been road buddies. And they had been road buddies, and Randy Orton considered him his best friend, so he was all for this or whatever. But when it came time for them to get down to business and be serious with Triple H and Ric Flair, seeing what the chemistry would be like, Triple H just could not stand Mark Jindrak. He said
he got a raw deal.
He said they acted extremely childish, him and Randy Orton, when they were together, which was also very interesting just watching this documentary as well, and the backstage footage of Randy Orton, where you see how much personality Randy Orton really has. And I know in 2020 he's got the moniker Blandy Orton, but he has a lot of personality, but he's also a dick too, which usually those are the people who have a lot of personality. It's just one that can rub a lot of people the wrong way. Some people say I got that type of personality, but fuck those people.
So are you saying the dick know how to rub the people the wrong way?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's what I heard.
Well, when you're Randy Orton, you rub the dick and shake hands, but you know.
He's kind of always reminded me of like some type of privileged frat boy with his backstage antics. I mean, they didn't talk about it, but you know, he was going around shitting in people's bags and stuff going back in the day.
Yeah, so
I don't know. He would have had to get his ass whooped. I'm just saying.
Right, but anyways, Triple H says that they're in there. They got the animal toy that when you pull the lever, it makes the animal noises. They're in there making the animal noises, talking about some moo and oink, and he whispers to Ric Flair like, "I don't ever want to ride with this guy ever again." He's like, Randy Orton is cool when he's not around this guy. But
it was two of them acting a fool.
But Mustafa, this is how the wrestling business goes. If they don't want to put you over, they'll find the easiest reason just to like, nope, this ain't gonna happen.
So then what happens is Triple H tells Ric Flair, he probably tells Vince, but Vince is like, no, Mark Jindrak, he's the guy. And so they have a promo shoot that they're supposed to do, Reservoir Dogs based. Everybody's supposed to wear black suits or whatever. And so suppose Triple H is expecting for it to be Randy Orton, him and Ric Flair. But for some reason, Mark Jindrak shows up, lets him know he has his black suit. Triple H is like, why is he here? Why does he have a black suit? He's not a part of this thing. He's going back and forth with Vince. And Vince is like, he's going to work. It's going to fit, yada, yada, yada. And so they shoot the promos with Mark Jindrak, but they also shoot the promos without Mark Jindrak because they're unsure of what's going to happen. And so it comes down to TV time, and they basically tell Mark Jindrak, yo, you didn't make the cut.
Because they're assholes.
And Mark Jindrak basically says he understands it. You could tell he wanted to cry. Like, he missed out on so much money.
Yeah, he said he missed out on $1 million, basically $1 million deal.
Multi-million-dollar.
Yeah, multi-million-dollar. Yeah. All because you act like a jackass in the back seat.
All because you couldn't take it serious.
You know what? I'm not trying to give Mark Jindrak a pass or anything. I mean, you should know how to fucking act in public. So I'll blame your parents.
But no, he's probably feeding off of Randy Orton's energy too.
And he should know how to act in public.
Yeah, true that.
Which I guess around Triple H he did know how to act. And Triple H pretty much said, we'll get into it, but he pretty much even stated in the documentary that when he wasn't underneath the tutelage of himself and Ric Flair, that's when Randy Orton got into a lot of trouble. Just like Randy Orton was talking about Edge leading into WrestleMania, how he put himself in a lot of situations that were messed up, and he always pretty much needed somebody to pull him out of those situations. He doesn't know how to control himself and his urges and his emotions or whatever. But we'll get into that once we get to that point. But yeah, so Mark Jindrak didn't work out. Batista's all healed up. He comes back, and Evolution is off to the races. They end up winning all of the gold. They're on top of the world. It comes
They're
down.
over as heels.
They're over. They're over as anti-heroes.
Yeah.
They're getting cheered. They're getting booed. They're getting everything. They're polarizing. But for the most part, they're over with all of the fans.
Can we show some appreciation for Motorhead's theme,
Evolution
Evolution?
is a
Man,
mystery.
that shit still bangs to this day. I think that was part of them getting over so well, was that damn theme was hot.
You know, just all the Motorhead songs they do for WWE.
Well, ain't no more of those. So.
And then Randy Orton did the pose. That's when he started doing that pose. That was just perfect with
that used to be my favorite. That was
the gimmicks coming down on him, the fireworks or
that used to
whatever.
be my favorite entrance in WWE. Every wrestling game, that was always my created character's entrance. Was Randy Orton's entrance with the golden shower. Pause.
Yes, the golden shower. Yeah, that made Randy Orton right there. Like, you could talk about bathe in your arrogance.
And so they Ric Flair and Batista had the tag team titles. Randy Orton had the Intercontinental title, and Triple H had the world title. So they're on top of the world. Yada yada yada.
They were firing on all cylinders. Flair was back to his old self.
Yep, they're
Randy Orton adopted the Legend Killer persona.
Yep, Legend Killer persona. They end up beating Batista, and Randy Orton end up beating The Rock and Mankind at WrestleMania 20, and they're on top of the world. Then they didn't talk about they didn't talk about them really losing the titles or anything like that. But it eventually comes down to now Randy Orton is facing some unknown wrestler at WrestleMania 21 to win the title. This is probably the only time you're gonna ever see a glimpse of
SummerSlam. It was
SummerSlam. See a glimpse of Chris Benoit.
I was interested in seeing if they were going to even say his name or even show him. They showed him taking the RKO, and they did not drop his name.
Yeah, and so he won from some unknown wrestler that was carrying the world title at the time. Evolution comes out. They put him up on Batista's shoulders, and for those of you wrestling fans, this is a moment that lives in infamy. He's up on Batista's shoulder. Triple H giving him the thumbs up, and he's giving him the thumbs down. Batista hits him with the electric chair, and now Randy Orton is a babyface, which was one of the biggest mistakes in WWE that they continue to make to this day, making Randy Orton a babyface. But at this point, it went over like a wet fart. And also, they addressed that Randy Orton was not ready to be champion at this time. Go ahead, Chris Black.
Let's address the elephant in the room. The only reason why Randy Orton won that title was because this is when Brock left, right? And they wanted to erase Brock as being the youngest champ, if I'm not mistaken, or did I just rewrite history?
No, Brock was gone. He had left.
Okay, yeah.
So WrestleMania 20, he had been gone for a year.
Man, the thing is, I remember back then, I'm just like, they rushed this turn because it only lasted a month. I was pissed that Randy Orton lost the title in a month. And yeah, he's not a good face. Orton has never, ever been a good face to me. He's always been a much better heel. This title reign kind of showed it. Triple H kind of had to, seems like he had to pull back. And he's like, okay, let me get this title back. Politicking and stuff. He wasn't ready for it, like they said. And I wasn't backstage back then. I mean, I wasn't backstage at all, but except that one time. But they said like the prick side of him kind of came out. Because it went to his head. His success went to his head.
The womanizing, the frat boy attitude. I'm the next big thing. He's like, go tell your friends that. No, go tell them.
Right.
All that stuff is when you also seen him with the ring rats and everything. And yeah, I don't even like people like to say Triple H just like to shoehorn himself into the top position. But at this point in time, I feel like it was kind of a necessity to save Randy Orton from himself.
Well, not only that, I mean, just to, put my boy Triple H over for a little bit, like, when your back's against the wall, I mean, you could do worse than having Triple H hold the title, because at least he'll be one of those heels that he's a beatable champ, and he's going to carry whoever he's in the ring with.
Except for Roman Reigns. But that's another discussion in like 5 more years when they make that documentary. But yeah, so he just wasn't ready. He had the cocky attitude and everything. They had to bring him back down to earth. Triple H takes the title from him, and now we're off to the races. Pretty much. Well, I'm not even gonna say off to the races because they actually did the slow burn, and this was one of those few times they did the slow burn and really had it pay off at WrestleMania, which we don't get a lot of anymore, where Batista went up against Triple H. And this is also, so this was pretty much the disbandment of Evolution. But like I said, they did the slow burn. They did it over, I believe it was like 9 months that they pretty much had the storyline of will they, won't they break up, and when is it going to happen?
Yeah, pretty much right after he won the title, Batista started looking at it all hungry, like Braun Strowman was doing.
Right. And so Randy Orton is off doing his Legend Killer gimmick again, and he's facing The Undertaker at WrestleMania and losing to The Undertaker, but he proved that he deserved to still be at the top, and he knew who he was as a character and his position in the company. Pretty much them showing that kind of show, that's when Randy Orton became a made man in WWE.
I thought they would give Randy Orton the victory. I remember watching that match.
I did too.
He's going to beat The Undertaker.
I did too. They had me believing. That was the first person I believed that was going to beat The Undertaker. I was like, Randy Orton's going to beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania.
Yep.
Which would have been
really? I didn't think that for a second.
No, because the whole Legend Killer, like he went from, heel to babyface for a month, back to heel, and it's just like the whole he really turned up the Legend Killer attitude, and I thought, oh, it's a wrap for Undertaker.
I also think that was also that storyline, just a build to it too. That was one of the best built Undertaker WrestleMania storylines, and the mind games he was playing with Randy Orton and everything. That's also the match where his dad had hepatitis and was bleeding all over the Undertaker. They didn't bring that up. You just saw his hat in the ring. Undertaker was pissed. Man, you think about all the things Undertaker's been through in this company, from being set on fire to having people with Hep C bleeding all over him to
have Mabel smash his face.
Like,
that didn't sound right. Hold on. Pause.
But yeah, so Triple H versus Batista, they had the build. Batista wins the Royal Rumble. He earns the right to challenge the SmackDown champion, which was JBL, or the Raw champion, which was Triple H. At this time, Evolution was still a thing. They put a hit out on Batista, but played like they didn't know anything about it. Pretty much the same thing, the same storyline: Stone Cold, Rikishi, and Triple H and The Rock.
And I just want to say, did this player really put some horns on a limo and play it? Like, I forgot all about that. And then when I saw that, I make him wrestle Batista. That's some bull. But that was great, though. That's one of those things, like, I look back in wrestling and I'm like, man, that was kind of cool. That was pretty sweet.
My favorite part was when Triple H, afterwards, he's talking to Ric Flair like, man, this big idiot, blah, 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 blah. And just basically just throwing Batista under the bus. And then the camera pulls back and he's standing outside the door listening like, I remember popping for that moment.
Yeah, and I think that's, great storytelling to go from there to the ring where the audience know, Batista knows, but they don't know. They think they're in the clear. You're like, how this is going to go down. And when you see that thumbs up, you know it's going to happen because it's going to happen before.
Well, yeah, so Batista and them, they come out to the ring. He has 2 clipboards, one with SmackDown, one with Raw. He throws the Raw clipboard down. He lets Triple H know, I knew what I was going to do for the longest time. Acts like he's going to sign the SmackDown deal to go face JBL at WrestleMania. And Triple H and them are giving him the thumbs up and saying, yes, go ahead, sign it. And so Batista's giving them the thumbs up, thumbs down, tosses Ric Flair down. Well, he clotheslines Triple H, knocks Ric Flair down, then power bombs Triple H through the table and signs the Raw contract. And now we're headed to WrestleMania with Triple H and Batista. Go ahead, Chris Black.
Okay, so I was on the Batista train come WrestleMania that year. I was like, oh man, this is going to be the guy. He's going to be the guy. And him and Triple H had 3 excellent matches. First starting at WrestleMania, then the next 2 pay-per-views afterwards. The problem was, once Batista got away from Triple H, all of his inexperience was exposed because he went downhill after those 3 excellent matches with Triple H. Triple H, it showed to me back then, Triple H carried the shit out of Batista. I think Batista, honestly, his good matches have always only been against Triple H and John Cena. Those are the only guys that can pull good matches out of Batista.
Xavier Mustafa.
Oh, I already said my part. Remember, I said some stuff and then you repeated it and then you went to Chris Black.
Okay. So then I repeat. Whatever. But yeah.
I got no more to say on it.
So yeah, that's pretty much the end of Evolution. Pretty much that's pretty much where they left it. That these 2 guys became made man. Triple H had promised Vince that he was gonna take 2 young guys if he gave them the opportunity to create this stable, and he was gonna create main eventers. He did create main eventers. He created Hall of Famers. Batista's going into the Hall of Fame this year at some point in time. Once the United States gets their shit together. Randy Orton is obviously going to be going into the Hall of Fame at some point as well. Ric Flair's already in there, and Triple H is in there twice. Or no, he's in there once because DX only went in. Yeah. So, and Triple H will be going in by himself at some point too, and he'll probably be going in as a member of Evolution. So Triple H will be a 3-time Hall of Famer at some point.
So you know what? When I look at each one of these guys individually, you look at Ric Flair. Ric Flair's had a great Hall of Fame career. Triple H has had a great Hall of Fame career. Randy Orton definitely has had a great Hall of Fame career.
Oh, here we go.
Batista, I'm going to say Batista has been in the right places at the right time. Because think about it. When you look at his overall body of work, it's not all that great. And it wasn't for a long period of time. Like you look at Randy Orton. Randy Orton's been in the business for what it seemed like 20 years. But Batista, from the time he started, minus injuries and all that stuff, very, very short time. But he made the most of it. Got his championships, got the hell up out of there, and now he's an acting star. Not saying he's great at that, but he's great at Guardians of the Galaxy. Anything outside of that, man. But definitely right place, right time guy. So I ain't gonna be I'm mad at you, bro. Make your money.
You got anything else that you want to bring up from the Evolution, Ruthless Aggression Era episode?
Again, it was an awesome episode. Again, I learned a lot about this group and the formation of it and all the hurdles they had to jump through. And I mean, overall, again, people want to always talk about Triple H and his golden shovel that he buries people, but you can see with NXT, even back then, he was thinking about the future,
Bro.
and he wanted to make Batista and Orton, main event players moving forward. So I'm going to have to disagree with folks. I mean, yeah, he's going to have that blemish of not putting Booker T over at WrestleMania, but for the most part, Triple H, when he's behind you, he's behind you.
Yeah, but
if you look at Jim Jack, you look at Booker T, you look at CM Punk, they all got a spot right on the back of their back of that golden shovel that you was just talking about.
Hold up, you forgot Goldberg.
Oh, and Goldberg and Sting.
Scott Steiner.
Fuck Goldberg and Scott Steiner. Sting should have won that match.
Now I would say he's done more good for the business than bad. But his bad definitely is a bright star, if you know what I'm saying.
But also his bad was over other people who pretty much had already been made at some point in their career. Besides, CM Punk is arguable because I do think if that match had happened that CM Punk walked out on, which was going to be Triple H and CM Punk, I don't think that would have hurt CM Punk's career as long as he was going to go over at some point.
But
And
Triple H, to his credit, he never liked Punk. Even when he first came in, he was like, "So they call you the King of the Indies, huh?" So he already didn't like Punk.
and now he's in charge of all of the indie people, and Adam Cole, who became the king of the indies.
I would have been like, "Have you even worked the indies, bro? Do you even know what those are? Do you know how it is to grind?" Oh no, sorry. You've been sucking on the WCW,
Don't
WWF.
you know? I was terrorizing.
I went to the WCW powerhouse. What you talking about?
But
But
you know what?
Worked the Indies for like a month.
But you know what, guys? To wrap this up, I was excited about this episode until I realized what the next episode is. Y'all know what's happening in the next episode? We're bringing the pain, baby. We bringing the pain. Brock Lesnar.
which it's gonna be interesting to see what they bring up in that episode, since he's such a reclusive individual. So, but also again, one of those people that's like Randy Orton. You kind of say the same thing about Randy Orton, but Brock Lesnar's full of personality. He's not afraid to make fun of himself, or at least he used to not be afraid to make fun of himself. So we'll see what type of archival footage that we've never seen of Brock Lesnar backstage that they put in that episode. But other than that, if you guys don't have anything else or any other takeaways from this episode, you guys want to give out your social medias and where people can find you.
You can catch me at Xavier Mustafa on Facebook and Twitter, or you can catch me at the house in the quarantine.
You can catch me at the Natural Chris Black on Facebook and Instagram, and the_natural_CB on Twitter.
And you can find me at Slamcaster TE78 over on Twitter. Obviously, you're here on YouTube and you found us here, so be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you're notified whenever we upload new content over here. And also give us a like, leave us a comment. We do reply, and we'll definitely get back to you if you do that. Check out our podcast wherever you get your podcast from, Saturday Night Slamcasters, or you can do hashtag Come Get Slam. Also, be sure to join our Discord where you'll be able to listen to live commentary from us and interact with us immediately during pay-per-views and other special content that we may be doing live over there on Discord. And also you can talk to us over there through text, or you can come on the air with us too if you have anything interesting to say. We're trying to build that up. So yeah, check out our Discord, Saturday Night Slamcasters. Other than that, like I said, check out our podcast. We'll be back with a review of episode 4, which Xavier Mustafa just told you about. It's going to be covering Brock Lesnar. So yeah, holla at your boys. We up out of here. Come get slammed.